Hello, and welcome back to the Care Podcast, the show where we explore the heart of health and social care, the people, the connections, and the moments that define our most human experiences. Today, I want to look into a topic that many of us find difficult to talk about: end-of-life care. It's one of those conversations we tend to avoid, often out of fear or uncertainty. But what if facing it could bring us a greater understanding of life itself? In this episode, I'm sharing a deeply personal story, one that completely changed how I view death. It's a story of dignity, acceptance, and the incredible power of support during life's most challenging moments. So, whether you're a care professional, a family member supporting a loved one, or simply someone curious about how we can approach the end of life with compassion and grace, this episode is for you. Let's start a conversation that might just change the way we think about this universal experience. Talking about end-of-life care is something I never thought I'd be comfortable with. Like most people, I avoided the topic, whether it's out of fear, discomfort, or just not knowing how to approach it. But all of that changed a few years ago. An experience in my life altered not just how I see death, but how I see life itself. I was 32 at the time, and it was my uncle. He was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and the doctors said he didn't have long left. Weeks, maybe a few months at best. It felt like a punch in the gut. I was terrified, not just about losing him, but about what those final days would bring. I had this picture in my head, one shaped by fear of stories I'd heard, pain, chaos, desperation. I thought that's what we were heading into. But my uncle, he had other ideas. I'll never forget that day. He sat down with me. We were in his garden, a place he had poured his heart into for decades. And as calm as if we were discussing the weather, he said, "I've lived a good life. This is just the next part of the journey." I couldn't believe it. How could he be so composed, so accepting? We continued to sit in his garden as he began pointing out the flowers and the trees he'd planted over the years. Then he said something that I'll never forget. He said, "You see all this? It's all part of a cycle. Things grow, they bloom, and then they return to the earth. That's me now. It's my time to go back." I didn't know how to respond. What do you say to something so raw? At first, I thought it might be denial. Surely he hadn't fully grasped what was happening. But as he continued to speak, it became clear this wasn't denial at all. He had genuinely made peace with the reality of his situation, and in that moment, something shifted in me. His acceptance gave me a sense of peace. If he could look at death in this way, maybe I could too. He saw death as a natural part of life, not an adversary to be fought with, but something to embrace when the time came. My aunt worked closely with a phenomenal palliative care team. They weren't there just for him. Though they were exceptional at managing his comfort and pain, they were there for the entire family. They helped my aunt and my cousins navigate this incredibly difficult time. They made space for honest conversations about his wishes and what he wanted his final days to look like. He was clear: no invasive treatments, no hospital stays. He wanted to be at home, surrounded by his family, with his favourite music playing in the background. When the time came, it was peaceful. All his family were there, holding his hand, and his favourite song was playing in the background. And it was in those final moments I realised something that has stayed with me ever since. Death isn't the enemy. It's part of the human experience. This experience with my uncle changed everything for me. I used to think it was about fighting to prolong life at any cost. Now, I understand that end-of-life care is about quality and not quantity. It's about dignity, respecting someone's wishes and ensuring those final days are meaningful, not just for the person who's dying, but for everyone who loves them. And you know what? It's changed the way I live my life too. I don't put things off the way I used to. My uncle's acceptance of death taught me how to truly embrace life. Of course, everyone's experience is different, and no two journeys are the same. But what I've learned is that with the right support, whether that's hospice care, palliative teams, or even just open and honest conversations, death doesn't have to be something we dread. My uncle showed me that the way we approach death can reflect in the way we've lived. If we can live with purpose, with gratitude, and with acceptance, then maybe we can face the end in the same way. This is why I believe we need to talk more about death and dying. The more we have these conversations, the less intimidating the topic becomes. Death isn't just the end, it's part of the whole story. I think understanding that can change everything. Don't you? After reflecting on my uncle's journey, I've come to realize how much we avoid these conversations, even though they touch every single one of us at some point. It's as though talking about death is tempting fate, but the truth is, it's in these conversations that we find clarity, strength, and strangely enough, a deeper appreciation of life. If there's one thing I've taken from this experience, it's that the end of life isn't just about a person dying. It's about the legacy they leave behind in the way they've lived and how they choose to face the end. My uncle left us with a gift, even in his final days. The understanding that life is precious and worth living fully, right up to the very end. End-of-life care touches every corner of humanity. It's not just about the final moments of someone's life. It's about ensuring dignity, respect, and compassion during their final chapter. Whether you're a care worker, a family member, or a friend, end-of-life care requires an immense level of understanding, empathy, and skill. End-of-life care, often referred to as palliative care in some contexts, focuses on providing comfort, managing symptoms, and supporting emotional, spiritual, and psychological needs as someone approaches the end of their life. This care can begin days, weeks, or even months before passing, depending on the individual's condition. One key thing to understand is that end-of-life care isn't about prolonging life or hastening death. It's about improving the quality of life for as long as possible. For example, consider a resident in a care home with advanced dementia. They may be unable to express their needs verbally, but they could show signs of discomfort through restlessness or changes in behavior. Recognizing these signs and addressing them, whether by adjusting their position or managing their pain or simply offering a calming presence, can make an immense difference in their comfort. So my tips for care workers and the key principles of end-of-life care are: open and honest communication is critical. This includes conversations with the person receiving the care if possible and their families. Respect their preferences and ensure they feel heard. Avoid using euphemisms like slipping away unless you're sure it aligns with their understanding. Phrases like passing or dying can be difficult but are often clearer and more respectful. Pain management, ensuring proper hydration and preventing issues like pressure sores are vital. Regularly assess the individual's needs as they may change rapidly during this stage. Be mindful of the person's emotional state. They may experience fear, sadness, or confusion. Providing reassurance, listening without judgment, and offering small comforts like playing their favourite music or holding their hand can bring peace. For example, a resident may find comfort in rituals from their faith or personal beliefs, such as prayers, songs, or specific cultural practices. If they've expressed these wishes, do your best to honour them. Family members often need as much support as the person who is dying. Keep them informed, invite them to participate in care, and provide resources for grief and bereavement. A simple gesture like making a cup of tea for a family member or just sitting with them can offer immense comfort during this overwhelming time. Not every moment requires action. Sometimes just being present and silent is the most meaningful way to show you care. Be flexible and patient. End-of-life care rarely follows a predictable pattern. Be prepared to adapt to changing circumstances and ensure that the individual's dignity remains central to all decisions. Educate yourself. Familiarize yourself with common end-of-life practices, pain management techniques, and cultural differences. Training can make you more confident in navigating this sensitive time. And lastly, take care of yourself. Supporting someone at the end of life is emotionally taxing. Don't hesitate to seek support from colleagues and supervisors, or take time to process your own emotions. If your organization offers an employee support program, then make use of it. These can help you understand and manage the emotional impact of your work. End-of-life care is not easy, but it is one of the most meaningful gifts you can give. In those final moments, your compassion, presence, and small acts of kindness create a lasting impact, not just for the person in your care, but for their families and for yourself. As care workers, we have the privilege of being part of some of the most intimate moments. Let's strive to bring dignity, peace, and humanity to those moments, remembering that every life deserves respect until its very last breath. Thank you for joining me today on the Care Podcast. I hope this episode has provided some guidance, reassurance, or even just a moment of reflection. If you have any thoughts, questions, or experiences you'd like to share, please reach out via our social media channels or email. I'd love to hear your feedback, so drop a comment or message me directly at thecarepodcast@outlook.com. Until next time, take care of yourselves and of each other, and remember, every moment matters.